This is the Marathon Handbook Podcast. I am joined today by Queen of the Track, Katelyn Tocci, and our 5K artist in residence, Alex Cyr.
Oh my goodness.
And
Hello. What an
Today
honor it is for you to have me here.
Indeed it is. You've probably run more 5Ks than the rest of us. So
I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe.
sure.
we've bestowed that honor upon you. And today we're going to talk all about how it is that you can go about running your fastest ever 5K. We have gone deep down the rabbit hole on the science behind how to elevate your 5K game. We'll share some of our trials and tribulations with the dreaded distance and why we fear it so much. And I'm actually curious to hear if it's your most feared distance. And I'll share my perspective.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. And then at the very end, we're going to get into sharing with you. We're going to each offer up what we think is a killer 5K workout that will supercharge your performance on race day. And we'll have a little healthy debate as to whose workout we think is the strongest and why.
Oh, okay. Competition. I like it.
Indeed. Yeah. Let's start things out here today with, I'll turn to both you guys. I'm curious to hear your perspective here. Define the 5K in one word or phrase. Mr. Cyr, what do you got?
Oh, okay. My word is infernal.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
The 5K is like burning flames all around you. It's intense at the start, it's intense at the end, and it's so tough. And like, okay, I'm addressing listeners right now. If you think this is puzzling, you need to reframe your thinking around what the 5K is. A 5K, like a well-run 5K, is not like the easy, fun little brother of the 10K or the marathon or whatever.
No.
It is a very painful distance. If you run it as fast as you can, it's one of the hardest things to do in running. So, yeah, infernal.
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 This
I
is
like
not an
it.
exaggeration.
You went biblical. You decided to pull a little like Milton, you're sort of creating this Dantean sort of analogy here. Like which ring of hell is the 5K? I think it's probably pretty far down there. Katelyn, one word or phrase. And yeah, like biblical is off the board apparently.
Okay,
now.
biblical is off the board. I'm going to borrow a phrase from one of my favorite runners. I'm going to say pain cave, like the constant pain
Nice.
cave. A 5K is a pain cave. It's just like Alex is saying, you just run a 5K as fast as you can for that distance. And it's such an intense effort level, which is why it scares me too. So I would say pain cave, 100%. What about you, Michael? What do you think?
I'm very tempted to just go with like suffering or torture. But I don't want to scare our listeners and viewers away too much here. And we'll get into why we think, sure, it's really brutally hard, but also like doing hard things is fun, right? It's kind of like one of the overriding themes of the podcast and of running in general is doing hard things is fun.
Yeah.
And this is a really hard thing. We're going to work through how to make this hard thing both fun and entertaining in a weird level, and also like how you can get better at it so you feel like you've got some sense of mastery by the end of your 5K journey. My one phrase, I'm going to go phrase here, and I'm going to borrow from a friend of mine who I know listens every week. So he'd hate if I gave him a shout out right now. So I'm not going to, but you're listening and you know. And he always likes to say, specifically with the marathon, but I think this holds really true with the 5K, which is holding your hand to the flame. And it's this whole idea of like, you put your hand over top of the fire and you hold your hand to the flame, metaphorically speaking, and you don't pull it away. And that is the 5K for the whole damn thing. You got to hold your hand to the flame and not pull away.
Oh,
so
I love that because with that analogy, you can make it easy on yourself. You can finish a 5K pull your hand out of the flame far before the end if you choose to, but you kind of know that you shouldn't.
Well, you think there's a misconception with the 5K as well, because at least a lot of my athletes or people in the running club who are just beginning to run, they always look at the runners who run a longer distances and they say, "Oh no, but that's so much harder. The 5K, that's what I'm trying to get to. It has to be so much easier." And I always tell them, "No, it's not. It's so much harder because once you get into it and once you start running a few 5Ks and it's not your first 5K, then you realize the effort level that you can push for that 5K." So I don't want anyone to sell themselves short when they think about a 5K because it is literally one of the hardest distances to run out there.
Yeah, we'll get into the physiology behind that. Sort of like what I'm going to turn to you guys in a minute here and prep. No prep here, but I'm going to turn to you and ask you like what's happening in the body in the 5K and why is it different than say like a 10 mile or certainly a half marathon and definitely a marathon. Like there's some stuff that's going on chemically in your body that is very different in a 5K than a typical longer distance runner, a half marathon runner would experience, right? And it's very easy to go, and we'll get into explainers in a second here if you're not familiar with this stuff. It's very easy to go from holding yourself in a 5K pace, VO2 max or faster range, and then kind of pulling yourself back to what's called lactate threshold pace, which is how hard you can go for an hour, which still feels hard, but is not 5K pace. And that's when you're pulling your hand back off the flame, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about how you can work and train, and we'll each offer up a workout that can help you get comfortable being extremely uncomfortable, because that's the name of the game. Okay, so another one for you. If the marathon is blank, then the 5K is blank. Mr. Cyr, what do you fill in the blanks for us?
If the marathon is composing a song, the 5K is singing karaoke.
Okay.
Because it's more ephemeral. You can do it a bunch. It's kind of less of a big deal. You can rope a few of your friends into doing it pretty easily.
That's
wink,
so
wink,
good, Alex.
Katelyn.
Yes.
But it also lays your talent bare no matter what. At the end, you have a result and it does say something about you. If you go to karaoke and it's just for fun, but you belt out a song, people will notice. And maybe that means one day you should compose a song. Not just compose a song, but compose a good song.
That was awesome, Alex. That is so good. I love it. Yeah, that's a great one. Mine, the one that I'm thinking of is so boring. It's so much, but I'm going to share it anyway because it's more, I don't know, coming from Coach Katelyn. If the marathon, if the marathon is about patience, the 5K is about pain tolerance.
The P's.
The P's. So, again, I'm not trying to scare anyone, but with the marathon, no, but seriously, with the marathon, trying to run that 42K takes a lot of patience, and you have to be really smart about pacing, and you have to be really smart about holding back, just because you have to do, a lot of times the distance. You have to do 5Ks over and over and over again 8 times. So if you run a 5K, you have to be able to go out strong, also pace yourself, but you have to just kind of hold on for dear life. So it's going to be a lot harder in the sense that you have to hold on and just kind of put up with that burning sensation for part of the race. So patience and pain tolerance.
Oh, I feel like this is one of those things that's going to stick with me, Katelyn.
Yeah,
I actually
really?
love that because, maybe some people listening are like, I haven't run a 5K yet. I'm the opposite. So I've run a lot of 5Ks. I haven't run a marathon, but I've done a half. And one of the very first things that I tell myself when I'm running a half is don't overdo it. You can run faster right now. You physically can, but you shouldn't. Have patience. That's like the main cue that I have in a half, which probably just becomes more true in a full. And the 5K is the opposite, and you've nailed it on the head. The first thing I tell myself when I'm running a 5K is it's okay that it hurts. It's okay that you're just a minute into this race and you're already uncomfortable. So, yes, I couldn't agree more.
Your both of your analogies actually kind of wonderfully overlap, because in the one hand with the marathon, I think the idea is you spend lots of time ruminating, working over your song, writing and rewriting the chorus, getting that refrain at the end just right. And then in the other case, you smash a bunch of beers, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, you convince yourself it's a really great idea to go do some karaoke. And then you just like you belt out the hits. And then, you know what, if you happen to have a little bit of talent at it, you wake up the next day, you watch the video on your phone of yourself, and you're not entirely embarrassed. Or in my case, you're absolutely humiliated.
Or in mine and Alex's case, we were proud as can be. Right,
I
Alex?
was going to say, in our case, we were somewhere in the middle.
No, yeah.
For those of you who are new to the podcast and have discovered us by searching for how to run a 5K PR and keyword search on YouTube, welcome to the madness. And Katelyn and Alex like to duet karaoke from time to time. So
that's right.
Yeah, mine would be, if the marathon is a PhD in running, the 5K is like an intensive summer workshop where you're like focusing and specializing in one subdivision of an area of study that you're becoming a budding expert in, but you're kind of still like mid schooling in a certain respect. And the 5K summer intensive will help with your overall running PhD, but you're probably not going to get in front of any college auditorium and be a lecturer just yet with the summer intensive, right? But you can learn a lot, and some of it will fade away in time, but it will be a very exciting and sort of like crystallizing moment for you doing a big block of 5K training, say throughout the course of the summertime when there's a lot of 5Ks up for grabs, especially in North America and Europe, right? So let's take a quick break. And then after the break, let's get into the physiological elements of things. Let's talk about what sort of makes the perfect 5K runner, or perhaps a more helpful way for all of us mere mortals. How can we get this bag of bones that I've got to operate with running faster so that we can run our best version of a 5K? All right, what's happening inside of your body during a 5K? We know what's happening in your mind, which is the vice tightening. Yeah.
Stop now. Stop.
Please slow down. But what's happening in your body that's signaling to your mind to, for the love of God, pull over on the side of the road and just convulse? Mr. Cyr.
So the way I think about it, what helps me understand it is that a 5K is you're intimating yourself with a running boogeyman. And let me explain what I mean. If you're coming at it from the half marathon or the full marathon, there's this boogeyman that you never want to encounter. It's a physiological one. It's called your lactate threshold. Okay. If you run fast enough, say a little bit faster than the pace that you could hold for roughly an hour, it's like on a rough estimate, things start to go down south really quickly. And so what happens is you start encasing more lactate or hydrogen ions, if you want to get specific with the physiology, faster than you can get rid of them. And then that creates that bad lactic feeling in your muscles. Some people call it lactic acids. When your quads start to burn, your hamstrings start to burn. In a half marathon or full marathon, you're trying to run under that pace. You never want that to happen. That's why I call it the boogeyman. When I run a half marathon, I'm running just under that pace. And if I go a little bit too quickly, things get a lot harder, a lot faster. In a 5K, you're intimating yourself with this physiological boogeyman right away. So a few minutes into the race, you're starting to already get close to that lactate threshold. And eventually you blow by it. And that's why things feel so hard and why things hurt so much. You're instead past that energy system. You're then working at VO2 max is what we call it. So you are taking in oxygen, you're feeding it to the muscles as fast as you can, and then you're releasing it as quickly as you can. And you're trying to stay at that level, which is incredibly painful for the duration of your run. And what's beyond it is your anaerobic threshold, I believe, right? Beyond your VO2 max is you can't even use the oxygen that you're taking in anymore. you're going too quickly. So it's basically like you're doing a sprint, and that level you cannot hold for very long. So you're basically at that closely suboptimal level of energy. You're working almost as hard as you possibly can for, depending how fast you are, 15, 16, 20, 25 minutes. So that's why it's so difficult. So, Coach Katelyn.
Yes.
What grade do you give me for this explanation?
I think that was amazing.
Was it? Okay, good. Because I usually just do the thing. I don't explain the thing. I try to understand what the heck is happening when I do the thing.
No, I think that was so great. That was so great how you explained it. And that's why people feel like it is so absolutely difficult, because you're basically like you're getting close to redlining the entire time for a 5K. So I know that if people who have listened to our podcast before, we usually use the analogy of like a car to figure out these different important pieces of being a good runner, right? And Alex just mentioned 2 out of the 3 we usually talk about, which is VO2 max and lactate threshold, and also your running economy, right? So all of these things kind of making up that great 5K run and that great 5K runner. So I think if we just want to give a quick explainer. So, but even though you really did, you already said exactly what the lactate threshold is. But what we can do is, the VO2 max, that really tough pace that you end up getting to as you get into like a kilometer into the 5K. You can think of your VO2 max, that number, as like your engine size, right? As a car. So the size of your aerobic engine, it's how much oxygen your body can use when you're going almost all out. So the bigger engine, the more oxygen that you can deliver to your muscles, and then the faster you can go, right? So that's when Alex is referring to the VO2 max. That's what we're referring to there. Is that a good definition, Michael? Michael's always yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's so, and it explains why Katelyn drives a Camaro and not like
that's right,
a little tiny 3-cylinder, hybrid. So yeah, that's a good analogy. And you can, I guess, the fear here is like, oh man, like what if my engine, can you grow your engine? Can you add to your engine? And the short answer is, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
You can add some parts to your engine to kind of like, you can mod your engine so that it's as powerful as it can be. Unfortunately, there is a genetic ceiling to each of our engines. Some of us have more powerful engines than others, sadly. But you work with what you've got. That's a great analogy for sure.
No, and we'll help people work with, because I'm sure that some of our workouts have some sort of VO2 max work in it, or they could, one of these. So a little later on in the podcast, we'll give you some of those tips at how to improve your VO2 max so you can be able to run at that faster speed for a longer amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's going to be some debate. We can talk about this later on about like whether, what's the most important thing for you to do when you're focusing on the 5K. But the good news is if you're listening to this and you're like, I kind of love the marathon and the half marathon, that's the stuff I'm more interested in. Becoming really efficient at a 5K and improving your VO2 max. The good news is that's going to really help you with longer distance stuff as well. There's a definite, there's a relationship between all these distance events. So yeah, you've heard, as you said, Katelyn, you've heard VO2 max, lactate threshold, running economy. It's sort of the 3 building blocks or principles of making for a great distance runner. We've talked about it before on the podcast. I don't think it ever hurts to talk about it again, because I think with all of us, with the sciencey stuff, sometimes it kind of flies over your head or you just forget the details of it. But no, that's good. Okay. Let's play a little quick game of would you rather before we get into our workouts here.
Okay. I thought you were going to test us on more stuff. Oh boy.
No.
Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
No, you can put your pencils down. We're okay. You've all passed. Would you rather run a 5K or a marathon? This is a tricky one. I actually had to think about this for a second. Alex, I'm curious to hear your answer because you've never run a marathon before. So for you, this is sort of speculative, right?
It is speculative. I'll try not to answer on based on just what I want to do next and my own goals. I'll try to be a bit more universal because that first answer would change probably from month to month. I think a marathon, actually.
Yeah.
I think a marathon.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, can I change the question? I'd rather run a marathon well than a 5K well. Because
Okay. Yeah. That's a different perspective, but yeah, for sure. Like
the
instead of like what kind of pain would you rather experience, which is I think the kind of way I was thinking about it. You're sort of like,
okay.
what would I rather achieve?
Okay, well, I'll take it your way. The reason I would add well is because I think it's a lot more rare to nail a marathon. You
Oh
can't
yeah.
just go and try to nail a
Mm-hmm.
marathon for, you know, once and then do it 2 weeks later and 2 weeks later. It
Mm-hmm.
might be a once a year thing for people or less. So I think it's just so much more elusive and rewarding to nail a marathon. Not speaking from experience, but just from numbers alone. But what type of pain would I rather feel? It is speculative. All I can tell you is 5K really hurts. I think the most painful race I've ever done was a 5K on the track. And there's just this weird, like awful type of feeling that happens between 3 and 4 kilometers. There's a mental element that also bakes into that when you
Oh
feel
yeah.
like you're not quite hitting your goal. You just need to convince yourself to stay on this torrid pace and feel this awful pain for 6, 7, 8 more minutes when every single fiber of your being is telling you to stop. And if you're trying to run a fast 5K, you can get away with much less walking, slowing down, taking breaks than if you're running a marathon. If you're running a
Yeah.
marathon and you're not quite having that great a day and you want to take a minute break and recharge, 1 minute in your final result, whatever. You can't do that in a 5K. There's nowhere to hide.
No, there's so little room for error. Katelyn,
Yeah.
I feel like I already know the answer from you. It's like Katelyn, the ultra runner. It's like I
Yeah.
should almost like modify this for you and be like 100 miles or 5K.
Yeah, 100 miles or marathon. That's an interesting one. That's for another day. So I would say a marathon. And I know maybe that's going to surprise our audience and runners that we would say, oh no, a marathon. Like you get to pull back the pace a little because the difference in effort is quite large, even though in the marathon you have to go for a longer amount of time and you have to have that patience and you have to do that more of a, longer race strategy and not burn out. But 5K is just so intense. So going with the marathon. Gee, Michael, what are you going to choose?
I think we got to go 3 for 3 here. I've one of my like this is the reason why I added this one in it in our little would you rather segment. This is something I've said before. It's just I think I'd rather run a marathon. Now the caveat here would be fully trained. I think I'd rather run a marathon than a fully trained for a 5K. Not fully trained for a marathon. I think it's a different sort of scenario. The pain that you can set yourself up for in the last half of a marathon, if you are not well trained for a marathon, is significant and awful and is a very different grindy long-term pain than the acute pain of a 5K.
Mhm.
And you can definitely, again, hold your hand to the flame in a 5K, perhaps more adequately with less mileage than certainly you can with a marathon. But they are very, very different things. And I think overall, if I was well trained for both, I'm going marathon. I can manage that dull kind of grinding pain of a marathon if I'm well trained. The acute suffering of that, Alex, you nailed it. That like 3K to like 4.2K in a 5K is just, it's this zone of just absolute hell that I fear, quite frankly, in running. And at the end of this, we'll get into workouts that can actually help you get comfortable with that to a certain degree, or get more comfortable with it, or like know what to expect, right? And know that feeling so that you can keep forcing yourself there. So you can hopefully stay like the Alex boogeyman is holding on to your back, but not wrestling you to the ground, right? Okay, so next one. Would you rather run the first half of a 5K hard or try to run the last half of a 5K hard?
Oh man, I think that's an easy one. I'd rather run the second half. Okay, I'd rather run the second half hard. Running the first half hard and setting yourself up to just fade for the second part sounds awful.
Yeah.
But I actually think you will get the best result by starting hard. I think it's harder to have like a pretty slow first 2.5K and then having to reel it in on still somewhat tired legs. So my best 5Ks actually come from a hard start and a lackluster finish as opposed
Yeah.
to the opposite.
Yeah.
But the opposite just sounds much easier to digest.
No, and it sounds smarter to try to do the second half faster, but to be a realist, I think I would probably also prefer to run harder in the first half and then just try to hang on for dear life in the second half. And I think that would probably be a better strategy for me in the 5K, because we can all say, and as a coach, I say it all the time to people, try to run even or a positive split, or a negative split in something like a marathon, or you want to run faster at the end because you don't want to burn out in the beginning. But I think for something like a 5K, if you can run hard in the first half and bank that teeny bit of time, maybe what you can't hold on to in the second half, you'll end up making it pretty even, or you'll still get that fast time. Needing to recuperate that time in the second 2.5K, if you're behind, I think that's a really tough thing to do. So I would say I would probably go out on the stronger side and just try to hold on as well as I can.
Yeah, I strategically put this one in because I think you're both flicking at exactly the reason why it's worth posing this question, which is I think that the 5K and under are these distances where, unlike the half and the marathon, and even to a degree the 10K, where you're aiming for even splits, although nailing an even split, so running your first half the equal time as your second half, is a tricky thing to figure out. And you really have to kind of know yourself through your training to get that number right going into race day. The 5K is one of these ones, much like running the mile on the track or an 800-meter race, and certainly a 400 meters, where you just have to start hard, hold through the middle hard, finish hard, and hope that your fade in the second half isn't dramatic and that you didn't start out so hard that you don't want to start out anaerobically, but you do need to get to sort of that VO2 max ceiling and then stay there, right? As a teaser to a little extra special podcast episode that we're going to insert in later this week, we spoke to the exercise physiologist that is the mastermind behind Breaking 4, the upcoming attempt by Faith Kipyegon to become the first woman to break 4 minutes in the mile. And so in my conversation with Dr. Andrew Jones, who the two of you know as well, because we spoke to him in Boston for our live event last month, he described some of the new research that they're doing in what they're calling priming. And we've all done a version of this before where it's like you do a warm up before a race. So you go out, maybe you run for 15 or even 20 minutes to get your body warmed up. And then you do, 5-6 strides before at the start line, these like sort of 80-ish meter stride outs that you run where you run really fast. And then you kind of jog or walk back and you run really fast again. And we kind of all do it. I think we all do it because we think we should do it. We all do it because we know that it makes starting the race feel better and more comfortable, and you're more prepared, and you're effectively priming your body. But what they've done a ton of research going into Breaking 4 around how to optimally prime the body for running a mile race, for example, which is obviously sub VO2 max, kind of like extra maximal effort, super maximal effort, I think is what they call it. It's like you're running 110% basically. And their finding was you need to run your goal pace for like up to like for a miler, like 400 meters continuously to prime your body. So basically you're like, everything is elevated to that point where you're ready to go before the race. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, something to think about. But anyway, all this to say, I think the first half hard is probably the right answer here. Okay, next one. And I think if you're playing along here, hopefully you're catching on to the fact that like we're doing these would you rathers because they're giving some good hints around how to approach running a 5K, right? Would you guys rather run a 5K in the heat or in extreme cold? Mr. Cyr, are we going tights and mittens and winter hat, or do you want to go tarps off and short shorts?
This might surprise you because I'm a Canadian, but I'm more into the heat for a 5K. I'd rather the heat. I find that in the cold, it can be really difficult to warm up my muscles before the race. And if I start a 5K or something fast like a 5K or even quicker, it's very difficult to get up to race pace if I'm freezing. And the only way to not feel freezing when it's super cold is to either, do a whole lot of warming up before, to the point where
Right.
you get to the start line tired, but although maybe I was just priming, who knows? Or you get there with a whole bunch of layers, which also just feels heavy, and I hate racing in layers. So I've always had an issue with the cold. So I go heat 100%, because the 5K is still small and short enough to be able to go through while suffering a little bit in the heat.
I mean, you guys saw me. I was going to say, you guys saw me running in Boston with you guys, the amount of clothing that I was wearing, and my teeth were chattering when we did the Boston vlog interviews. So you can probably guess that I'm going to say the heat. And it's for the same reasons as Alex, because I feel like, okay, well, if it's a marathon, maybe I would choose the cold, because I feel like I would be able to warm up a little better, and over the longer period of time, the cold would probably be better for me than the heat. Because even in this past Boston Marathon, I felt like it was a little too hot, which is strange for me to say, because it was only like 14 degrees, so it wasn't that way, Celsius. So if we're thinking about the 5K, I agree that kind of pushing through in the heat would be better, because you don't have to worry about getting your muscles warmed up, because they're going to be super warmed up by the heat. So I would prefer that, just like Alex would.
Yeah, I mean, sprinters love hot temperatures, right? 100-meter, 200-meter runners, they're looking for it to be like, at least 75 Fahrenheit at the start line, because it just makes the warm up and being explosive so much easier. So those type 2B muscles, those fast twitch muscles that you use when you are going completely anaerobic, so like that, the afterburners that you switch on. And I would say as well, I think that if we're going extreme cold versus heat, you want to go heat. I think yet again with the 5K, not dissimilar to a marathon or a half marathon or a 10K, I think optimal temperatures are probably somewhere around 7-8 degrees to 13-14 degrees Celsius. However, if you're forced to choose between extremes, and I think this is one of the reasons why you see a lot of 5Ks in the spring and the summertime, is you can still run extremely well in pretty hot and even pretty humid conditions, because it's a relatively short distance, and you don't need to necessarily hydrate mid race. You can just pre-hydrate beforehand and you can do some neat tricks of the trade, like have a cold shower before you run over to the start line of your race. Or, if you want to get really fancy, just like, put if you can get some sort of cooling vest, you can buy those things now, things like that. Or just like take an ice pack and keep it on the back of your neck or your head before a race if it's really hot. But
I do that when I race here.
Yeah. Well, you do that when you podcast sometimes.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Michael.
You do. She's doing that. She's doing that right now. But
one day we need like a behind the scenes photo of what all of this looks like with like the ice packs when it gets super hot.
Yeah, Marathon Handbook Studio South has been known to be overly toasty, I think.
Yeah,
exactly. Especially when we record the pod late in the day, Costa Rica time.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you rather train like a miler or a marathoner for a 5K? This is a tough one.
I have an answer. Train like what you're not.
Oh, very Kipchogean of you.
Thank you. Well, okay. I am the artist in residence, or what did you call me?
That's right.
So
yes, artist in residence.
So I had this insight when I was actually training for it was the 5K. I was in college and I was training for the 5K in the summer, and I was coming in as this miler because I did more 1500s. And so the 5K actually felt like a long distance for me. And my coach, rightly so, prescribed me a lot of tempo or threshold runs where I'd go out and just run 20 minutes at a comfortably hard pace. That was my workout for the 5K. And eventually that summer I got to the 5K and ran a huge personal best because I had worked on the part of the 5K that wasn't developed. Think of the 5K as like a middle ground between nearly sprints, short, fast track distances, and longer distance races. So like your 10K, your half marathon, and the full, where your lactate threshold will make you good, where your endurance will really help you. Well, then if you're racing a 5, look into yourself, see what you're strong at, and work on the opposite. I'm guessing that a lot of people who are watching or listening to this podcast right now are coming in from the marathon, because I know a lot of our listeners are marathoners. And so I'm guessing that for them, maybe it's doing a little bit of sprint training. Maybe it's doing 400 meters on the track. We'll get into workouts soon. But since that college year, and this is still what I do, I try to work on my weakness.
I think you're absolutely right. And how you're explaining the 5K speed or distance, it's like speed endurance, right? Which sounds kind of funny because most people think you either work speed or you either work endurance. But a 5K to me, it has both. So you've got to work on both. And I have been told by my coach year after year after year that why don't you take a few months and train like a miler? Why don't you take a few months and train for a 5K and try to get faster and then bring that, because that's my weakness, right? I'm not fast. I'm like a diesel tractor that like just
Katelyn diesel tractor Tocci. That's what we call her.
I love it.
That's it. I just chug along in the ultras, and yeah, sure, I've got great endurance and I can go for days, but why don't I work more on my weakness? And we have an aversion to that because it scares us to do things that we're not good at or that aren't our strengths. And so I always say, yeah, I'll do it later. And I put off that kind of training and say, no, I'll do it next season. No, I'll do it next season. And I think that it's something that we should all try and focus on and say, if this is our weakness, this is what we should do. So if you're more of a long distance runner, or you're used to doing just like long, moderate pace runs or easy runs, that you should do, what your weakness is. So do some sprint, do some track work, do some sprint training, try to get out of your comfort zone and to work those different systems so you improve what you just aren't strong at.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with both of you as well, and I don't mean
we're like on line we are all lined up.
Yes.
We are completely
aligned. Someone needs to start throwing real controversial bombs here. Maybe
I could throw out a controversial one here and say that, like, especially for most of our listeners and viewers, if you're more of a marathon runner, like, you're going to run very close to your best with marathon training in a 5K. It's just, you're not going to be able to run 100% your best, because there are some very specific refinements for a 5K that you need to put more effort into VO2 max than you probably would if you're training for a marathon. If you're training for a marathon, you're probably working a lot of lactate threshold and slightly slower down to marathon pace type intervals, and not as much VO2 max work, and certainly very little anaerobic work. So anaerobic work would be like a very foreign thing for a lot of distance runners, which would be like going to the track and doing like very hard all out 200 meter sprints and then doing like walk back recovery, not even jogging back, like full walking back to the start line of your spot on a 400 meter track to run a 200 meter section of it. Like, when's the last time either of you have done that? I have done it before. It's just been a while. It's when you get really focused on becoming very, very dead set on running a 5K or even like track races that you start doing stuff like that. Although it's very fun. So
it's very hard.
You feel like, it's very hard. It's very hard, because it's very hard to stay that focused and push yourself that hard.
Yeah.
Although it's a neat feeling. You go to the track, you're like, okay, I'm going to do like, 8x200 at all out pace for me, because I can't run any faster than 1500 meter pace probably at this stage of my life. And so I'm going to go all out pace for 200s, and I'm going to walk back to the start. I'm going to have my little water bottle there, a towel. I'm going to, it's a performative exercise, right? You feel like
take a few seconds, take a sip and then go again. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Now, but so I would say that, like, for most of our audience, don't sweat it. Like, if you're training for a marathon, you can insert yourself into some 5Ks and run pretty well. But this is an opportunity between spring and fall marathon season. Dabble in the 5K for a while and improve your 5K speed. And that's going to help you. It's going to help your leg speed. It's going to help your overall VO2 max. It's going to, like, it's going to carry you to a really good fall marathon, I think, especially once you start building for that marathon block after doing a bunch of 5Ks.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're convincing me.
yeah, and also just for someone who hasn't really focused on the 5, just remember that it doesn't have to be as ceremonious as a marathon too. You don't have to fit in a bunch of taper weeks. It's not something you have to really circle that hard on the calendar. You could be training well, and there's a 5K in 2 weeks. You can jump into it, and then you can recover from it pretty quickly. So yeah, fit it into a marathon build. Don't feel like you have to sacrifice your marathon season because this year you want to focus on the 5K.
All right, let's take one more quick break. And then when we come back, we'll have our 5K workout battle royale where Katelyn's going to come off the top rope with a flying elbow with her incredible 5K workout. And Alex Cyr and I will try to hold on for dear life. Just like we do in a 5K. All right, be right back. All right. What is the best 5K workout to do to achieve a personal best at this devilishly hard and very painful distance? I bet you if you were to check the transcript of this podcast, the words pain, hard, suffering, torture like appear like over a dozen times each. And I feel badly that we're sort of framing this as such a
So do I.
a
I don't want to
horrific
scare anybody
thing.
off.
Yeah, but it's good bad. It's good horrific. It's
Yeah.
and this is where
Challenging.
this is where we're gonna get into it. This is how you make it fun. Is you come up with, you program some workouts that are going to be really challenging, that are going to push some of these buttons. Certainly, I'm imagining we're going to be talking about VO2 max type pace workouts. Maybe touch upon some lactate threshold and maybe even some anaerobic type stuff as well. But these are ways that you can build those systems and become more comfortable with that type of pain that comes with the 5K, so that when you're actually running the race, you're equipped. You know that feeling, and you know you're there, but you also know you can do it because you've done it with these workouts. Okay. Mr. Cyr, you're first up in presenting to us one killer 5K workout that will deliver a PR. The floor is yours.
No pressure.
None taken. There is one workout. There's only one workout.
Oh, okay. I want to get
What's
this.
the workout?
You have to do it 1 to 2 weeks before your 5K. And I guarantee that it will be telling of what you can do.
Oh, predictor workout. I love it.
Okay.
I've done it on the track. Works best on the track, but you can totally also do it on the road.
Okay.
It's a 2-parter. A VO2 part, and then call it an anaerobic threshold part. The beef of the workout is intervals. 5 times 1 kilometer. Run it at your goal 5K pace. Between each K, take about half rest. If you're not sure what that is, maybe take 2 minutes off. 2 minutes is pretty safe, but roughly half rest is what's important. Finish those 5 1K intervals, take 3 minutes, and then you jump into the second part of the workout. 5 times 200 meters. Jog 90 seconds to 2 minutes between each 200. Jog slowly. Or if you're on a track, you just jog back. You hit 2 energy systems. You run at VO2 max. You're putting time on your feet at the pace that you want to run for the 5K that's coming up. And then the second part is you're practicing your finish. Well, you're doing 2 things. You're practicing your finish, but also you're teaching your body how to run even faster than you need to run, so that when you get to the race, running at your 5K pace doesn't feel as unmanageable. I've always had this feeling that you don't want your 5K to be the hardest that you've ever run, because that's a bad recipe. You want your body to know how to move even faster so that you have a bit of a buffer. You can't feel like you're in absolute hell the whole time. This workout I've done many times over the years. It's indicated some personal bests for me. My own training right now, I haven't done a proper 5K on the track in very long, and I want to do one this summer. And this is a workout I will suggest to my coach. I'll say, please give me this one because I like how much of an indicator that it is.
You assign it to yourself. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I think that's a great tip that you inserted in there, which is, and this is a really tough thing certainly for like recreational marathon runners or half marathon runners, is try to train in over the course of a season that 5K pace isn't your fastest pace your legs can move
Right.
you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I'm guilty of.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I don't know what my fastest pace is, my all out pace. 5K pace might be it. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. So this is a workout that you recommend doing kind of like 1 or 2 weeks out. This is the prove it workout. So there's been some work done before this to build you to that place.
What I like is I tend to do the longer style workouts earlier before then. A lot of threshold work, which you do need for a 5K, a lot of longer intervals. And then by 7 to 10 or 14 days out or 1 to 2 weeks out, you're getting to the point where your fitness is not going to change very much. You just need that pace recognition. You need your body to know what it feels like to run 5 kilometers, though broken up, in the pace that you want.
Yeah, and if you can run 5 times 1K with that short a rest, 2 minutes rest, which is getting into that range of like, by the time you're doing your last K, you're not actually able to recover. It's kind of revealing, it's showing your hand, so to speak. It's like that will be a great indicator. If you can hit that last K, if you can hold on to that last K at that goal pace, you're ready to run that 5. You basically just ran your race there. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, Katelyn. So Alex, do you have a name for that workout, Alex? Can we name that workout?
Oh, can we
give it a fancy
workouts?
name? Yeah, this could be a thing where this could become like this could be your legacy, Alex. What's the name of that workout?
All the workouts are named after people, like the Yasso 800s and the what is it, the Canova intervals or whatever you call them. Let's call them like the Cyr scramble. I don't know.
The Cyr getting seared by the Cyr.
The searing steak.
Yes.
We'll work on that.
Okay, yeah,
like
work on a title.
We'll workshop that. If you've got an idea, send it our way.
Yeah, send it to the notes.
Yeah. hi@marathonhandbook.com or put it in the comments if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify for sure.
Get an awesome title for that. I will take that 5K, Alex, and I will up you 200 meters. No, actually, this is very interesting because Alex and our workouts are on the same, and I think this is a good sign. They are on the same wavelength. So I would like to start with a haiku. No, I'm just kidding. But yesterday we published an awesome interview with Amby Burfoot, and he included.
Was it a haiku?
Yes, it was a haiku. So it was Michael Joyner's training haiku, which I think is so awesome for what we're talking about. And you guys just mentioned one of the points. So the haiku is run a lot of miles. I think of Michael when I read that. Some faster than your race pace. Rest once in a while. It's so great. Awesome. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with everyone.
The only thing it's missing to make it a true haiku is you have to have a seasonal word in there if you want it to be a true Japanese haiku. So
Michael,
we'll have to work that in.
We'll have to work that in
somehow. Yeah.
But I thought it was so awesome because when I was preparing my coaching tips and notes for this podcast, I was thinking, okay, what are the most important things to do? And we always have to tick off the boxes. You want to run a lot at race pace because you want to feel that race pace. And as Alex and Michael explained, you want to run faster than race pace. So if you're a marathoner, that's probably why you've recognized in your threshold runs and your tempo runs, you're running faster than marathon pace, right? So you want to have that block where you're practicing moving faster than you're going to move at your race pace. So both of those things are really, really important. So mine also mixes both, just in a different way. So after your warm up, which, this is going to vary on your fitness level and volume and everything, but between your 10 to 20 minutes of warm up or whatever you usually do to feel primed for your workout, you're going to do, Alex, so funny, it's so close, 5 times 800 meters at 5K pace
Okay.
with 200 meters at faster than 5K pace. So basically you're taking what you did and you're putting it together in kilometers. So you're going to do the 800 meters at race pace, a 200-kilometer kick. My workout is
200
called
meter.
race to, at 200 meter. I'm so sorry. Sorry. My workout is called race pace kicks. So you do 800 meters at
Nice.
5K race pace, which is like an 8 on an RPE scale if you work on that. Then 200 meters harder than 5K pace, which could be a 9. But then you get a kilometer of recovery. Okay.
Okay. So like
active
full
recovery running.
full
A full
recovery,
recovery run,
but
a
you
full
run
recovery
sl-
jog.
you're running slowly.
Yeah, you jog it out nice and slow. And I'm going to tell you about variations in a second because I want to make this attainable for everybody. So the original workout for an experienced 5K runner would be warm up, 5 times 800 meters, 5K pace, 200 meters faster than 5K pace, 1 kilometer warm up. Okay, so that's the bulk of that workout is 10K, right? So it's on the longer side, but you get those really nice recoveries. So you're working on your endurance as well, but you get to go back to speed and race pace. So what can you do if you're not quite up to that? Or you could use this as a progression. You could do this for 4 weeks in a row. You could start with just doing 3 repetitions of that. Okay. You could also vary the rest. So you could walk for the first couple of minutes there. You could walk 500 meters and then start ramping back up and run 500 meters until you finish that recovery kilometer. So there's a lot of ways that you can adjust this workout to make it work for you, right? Because some people, 5K runners, if you're a marathon runner, you're used to doing a workout that's going to be 12, 14 kilometers, right? Including your warm up and your cool down. That's going to be something that a lot of experienced runners are used to. If you're newer to the 5K, you just chop it down. You just do less reps and you can make that rest a little easier with adding in a walk in the beginning until you feel like you've begun to recuperate. Your heart rate has begun to settle again. And when you feel that you're recuperating, that you're recovering, go ahead and start jogging the rest of that recovery kilometer. So it's on the same line. It's the same idea as what Alex is saying, right? Run race pace, run faster than race pace, and get the 5 kilometers of that in close to your race so you can do it.
Jeez, I hate to say it, but your workout includes something that my workout doesn't, and I wish it did. And that's like the randomness of a kick. A kick is basically give what you have.
Yes.
And that's so important in a race. And in a 5K, if you're racing with someone, there will be pace changes. My workout is like very cookie cutter. It's very measured. And it's meant to be a benchmark. It's like a Strava kind of workout. You can go back and be like, I ran this. This perfectly indicates that I can replicate this on race day, but there's no randomness. So I like that.
Oh, cool.
I'm not saying you win, of course not, but I'm saying it's a cool part of your workout.
Well, if you want to put it into marathon, I've done this with marathon training too, but what you would do is then you do marathon pace and threshold pace or something like that, right? And then actually what I've done is those meters change. So the first week it'll be the 800, 200, but with the marathon training it'll be 700, 300 at threshold. And then 600, 400. So these are some really great, speed work. It's entertaining. It goes by super fast because you're switching it up a lot. And you get that kind of extra kick, like you're saying, Alex, for a gear change or just to get to the finish, to sprint to the finish line in a faster race.
So what's Michael got?
Yeah.
It's similar, but not quite the same as the two of your workouts, which by the way, I love both of those workouts. And I like the modularity of Katelyn's workout in particular, where you can, as you said, you can create like a crescendo over 3-4 weeks where you build up to that full block, that full effort that you're describing. And I also like Alex's because I love a prove it workout. I love a know where you stand workout where it's like, when you're fit, you run this workout and that defines what you're going to go after. And I think that's a really valuable thing because it provides you with a ton of confidence and a marker for you to attack in a race. Whereas instead of just sort of like guessing, which guessing in a 5K is a very dangerous thing, right? Because if you get it wildly incorrect, either you're going to be really disappointed because you're across the finish line. You're going to be like, I still had a lot left in the tank. Wow, I should have like run that much more aggressively. Or you're going to get 3K in and you're just going to be like, I feel like I'm running with a plastic bag over my head right now. I'm in a lot of trouble. And then you can't help but to like give up on yourself and fade back into that lactate threshold pace and really disappoint yourself in the end, right? Okay, so my workout is what I call the 4-3-2-1 workout. And the reason why I call it that is it's a very easy thing to remember. My brain turns into scrambled eggs, especially when I'm doing VO2 max work. I have a tough time counting laps on a track. I have a tough time remembering what sort of interval I'm supposed to be doing. So this is very easy to remember. And it's also like Katelyn, you can make it modular and build on it week over week. Mm-hmm. But the core principle behind it is, say we'll take the like mid-season fitness level where you're pretty fit and you've built up to this. You can run 4 minutes. Here's how it goes. It's going to be, we're talking in minutes, not in distance here. Okay. So very easy for anybody of any level to employ this because you're just running in minutes. You're running all of this at VO2 max with the exception of one interval. So you're going 4 minutes VO2 max, then you're taking 2 minutes rest. Then you're doing 3 minutes VO2 max, 2 minutes rest, 2 minutes VO2 max, 1 minute rest, then 1 minute all out.
Nice.
Then full recovery. And then you do it again. You do 2 sets of that.
Oh, okay. I was not expecting that. That's tough. That's tough.
2 sets.
And I love a time-based workout. That's great because everyone can do, you don't have to worry about a specific distance. That's awesome.
So a modular way of doing this is a great workout. It kind of can function almost like a hard fartlek workout that you can throw in at the beginning of a season to kind of know where you stand and to prime your body a little bit for doing harder work. Say you haven't like done a workout in a while, you took a month off after your goal race at the end of the springtime. You want to kind of get back into it again. You can just do 1 set of this. And if you want to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room and you don't want to like really stretch yourself out, you can do the 4-3-2-1. And instead of doing VO2 max and all out, you can do lactate threshold and then then more of a VO2 max 1 minuter at the end, which if you're not super fit or if you're still kind of recovering from that marathon grind throughout the spring, that VO2 max is going to feel like all out, right? So it's a great 1 set of that is a good starter. And then the following week, or you can try to move into 2 sets of that. And if you want to modify this, and I know we're talking 5K today, but if you want to modify this and actually port it over to more marathon or half marathon training, you can do 3 sets. You can build towards 3 sets of it early mid-season. And then you're really doing lactate threshold. And then a VO2 1 minute kick at the end. You're not going harder than that because I think 3 sets of that at VO2 max would like destroy a person.
Oh, so, God.
Yes, it would. Absolutely.
Yeah. So this one I find it like it's a 4-3-2-1 workout. I find it very easy to remember. I find it's attainable, but very difficult. And especially if you're going to put yourself into 5K shape, you just focus on the time base, and then you hold yourself to that VO2 max pace. Now you can use a variety of calculators to figure out what your VO2 max is, and your VO2 max will slide upward as you get fitter. Although we all have kind of a ceiling of where our VO2 max, our maximum attainable VO2 max is. You can also do this by heart rate as well. You can it's very hard to get yourself into that heart rate you really need to get into, and it's variable depending on the type of runner you are. But we've got a bunch of calculators. RPE is always good. RPE is how I run it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's always a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. There it is. There's my 4-3-2-1 workout. If you can also do a variation on this, the 2 sets, you can try doing 4-3-2-1 and then go back up the ladder again. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's tricky because you're doing 2 all out 1 minuters with very little recovery on either side of your rest. So
that sounds so much worse.
Yeah, it does sound worse. And also like to have to run more time as you get more tired. No. I'd rather do 4-3-2-1, 4-3-2-1.
Yeah. If anything, I would go like 4-4-3-3-2-2.
3-3, yeah.
I did 4-3-2-1 break 1-2-3-4 last week or 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
Just because I needed to know where I was, and I was like, this is the hardest version of that. I'm going to do it and see what happens. And I got through it, but man, it was hard.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
All right. Okay. So we got our 3 workouts. Really curious to hear what from our audience to hear if they do a similar workout, which one they're interested in, if they're going to try any one of our workouts, whose workout, of course, we're competitive, whose workout was the best. Although I would say, we didn't plan on this. I think all 3 of our workouts could be used in the same season.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Yeah, I think they could be. Yeah.
Not in the same week.
Right. I was going to say,
but
don't try all of these in the same week. If you guys are going if our audience, if you guys want to try them all out, try one a week. Don't try them all in the same week. It's going to be way too hard.
Even one every 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah.
For sure. You could do like 1 set, 4, 3, 2, 1 first week. You do Katelyn's workout like a week or 2 later. And then when you're, say, 6 weeks, 5 weeks into your build, you're starting to feel some fitness. And you've got a 5K coming up in 1 to 2 weeks. You could do Alex's Prove It workout and then know where you stand and then race. And then you could go back into training again for another workout a month later. Right.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
There you go. We've set up the training season.
Yeah. So what do we got going on? I said earlier in the podcast that we're going to insert a little special extra one. We're going to sprinkle a little extra podcast in here. We're going to try doing this from time to time. We're going to do an interview from time to time with like a long form interview with an interesting person in the running world. And so we've got one coming up with Dr. Andy Jones, who is really one of the foremost exercise physiologists in the world. He was an integral part of Nike's Breaking 2 project in 2017 and then Kipchoge's sub 59 run. He's worked with Kipchoge for a number of years. He worked with Paula Radcliffe before that when she had her phenomenal breakthrough in the marathon back in 2003 and ran 2:15. And now he's working with Faith Kipyegon for Breaking 4 that's coming up in June. And we talked to him for an hour and picked his brain on everything from what they're doing to help get Kipyegon close that 7.5 second gap that she's got to close to get under 4 minutes in the mile. A little bit of the background on how they came up with the concept and started building it a year and a half ago, and what we could expect maybe from this event that's different from any other event you're going to see this year, as well as a bunch of other stuff in terms of like really useful stuff for anybody who's out there listening or watching right now on how to become a better runner. So we've got
I'm so happy that you did this interview, Michael, because it's going to give me some fresh listening material on my next run. And I have no idea what you guys talked about.
That's right. Yeah. So that's coming out. I'll try to get that out there this weekend, and we'll be doing some more of those in the future and kind of experimenting with that a little bit. But we're going to keep our regularly scheduled programming as well. On Thursday mornings, the podcast drops at around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. It's when it sprinkles onto the podcast platforms wherever you listen to your podcast. And we also do a video version on YouTube and now Spotify as well. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Mr. Cyr, what do we have on the horizon for YouTube videos right now?
It's time to finally put together our first shoe roundup of 2025. So spring marathon season is over, pretty much over. A lot of the shoe launches have passed. So now we've got a good idea of what the top 5 daily trainers of 2025 are so far. So we tend to do these twice a year because there's usually a spring drop and then a fall drop for most brands. And so we'll likely have to update our power rankings of the best daily trainers by November or December. But this is the first wave of 2025. And that was one of the most fun videos to put together last year. So this one was also no exceptions. Daily trainers have become way more advanced. And so I think people are going to disagree with my picks because now there's so many ways to... Well, it's, like what makes a good daily trainer, right? It's a question that not everyone is agreeing on. So I've come up with my 5 absolute favorites. That's going to come out likely in the next couple of weeks. So
nice.
That's the main one. I'm also reviewing the Asics Gel Kayano right now, which is one of the longest standing daily trainers. It's a stability shoe. So it's a little departure from me. I tend to wear neutral shoes, but
you can wear a stability shoe because you're a pronator, right?
I am a pronator, so I still fit in both. So I've been running in it, I've been reviewing it, and I gotta say, the Kayano's come a really long way. So look out for that one too.
Nice.
I'm interested in watching that one. I have a very strong opinion about what the best daily trainer is. We won't spoil it. I almost feel like I need to barge into the Marathon Handbook YouTube studio and take over a section of that video to as an ode to my love for one particular shoe.
I do give you a shout in this video if it does make you feel better, because I know the shoe that you love, and it's mentioned, but it's not the number one for me.
Katelyn, Tocci, you put together a phenomenal video essay, a very personal story about your return to the Boston Marathon. Second time ever you ran Boston. Not a lot of people in the running world that are your running pals knew that you ran Boston. As you say in the video, it's like your dark secret that you've hid from other runners for like 20 years, that you once ran the Boston Marathon before you quote unquote became a runner, right?
Yeah.
It's an incredible video. It's out on our YouTube channel now. I recommend everyone watch it. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. We've sent it out in the newsletter this week as well. So we'll put it in the newsletter again sometime this week also, because I think it's worth everyone seeing, and you did an awesome job with it. It's really good. It's
Thanks. It's so nice. Also, all the support, and just thanks to everyone who has taken the time to watch it already and has sent me the nicest comments. And I've been back and forth with a lot of people. So I just really appreciate the support from our Marathon Handbook community, because it's just been so nice. And obviously a shout out to Koska, who did an amazing job with the editing.
Spoiler alert, you need to have a box of tissues close by, because you get a little teary watching it. So yeah.
And we knew the ending, and still so
So we also have our newsletter that goes out every day of the week. Katelyn helps pilot that project, goes out at 5:05 Eastern time every single day, and we sprinkle in all kinds of good stuff, including an update on what's going to come out with each episode of the podcast. If you don't already subscribe to the podcast, please do so. It helps us reach runners like yourself. And what else, guys? I think final thing I will say, if you do not follow us on Instagram, please do so, because we are putting a little extra juice into the Instagram.
Yeah, it's looking
putting a little
great.
extra effort into it. Yeah. And kind of like we've taken a step back to take a few steps forward, and now those steps forward are happening, and we're going to put a little bit of a lot of an extra effort into Instagram. So it should be a fun ride. If you don't follow us, please do so. And I think you'll enjoy the content that we're putting out there.
Yeah.
All right, gang. Until next week.
Bye.
Goodbye. Happy 5Ks.